Then I think of your position in the industry that you're in. One of the challenges that I believe is true, I'll let you answer the question, but let me frame it up, is that the way we communicate ourselves is changing extremely fast, meaning humans, right? Like I don't use emoji, but I can tell you that my teenagers use a lot of emoji, and they
Absolutely.
probably, I'm guessing, are chatting emoji into like service records. I think so, because they're asking for my response in emoji, right? Were you satisfied? Like, oh, smiley face, upset face, angry face, you know? So what does that do for your team? Because the way humans communicate just continues to change, right? We wrote much more eloquently back in the day. You look at the evolution of language, right? It was really eloquently written. It was shortened. Then it got to like shorthand. Now we're just choosing not to type in vowels anymore, like some kids are. And then now we're replacing complete sentences with imagery, and the phone makers get hyped up. Like, you think about it, the phone makers literally, when they release the new iPhone or new iOS, they're going to tell you the new emojis they've added, and people get excited. They're like, yes, I'm going to use that.
The language is evolving, and shorthand with pictures and emojis is the way I see my teenager and my 10-year-old also communicate. And you're spot on. Sometimes I have to ask them, what does this actually mean? I get it, but what does it mean? Like SMH, there's like a SMH.
Yeah.
Do you know what SMH means?
I'm assuming shaking my head, but it could be something else now.
I didn't know that. I'm like, what does this mean? What do you mean by SMH? And apparently everybody else knows and I don't. So it's one of those things that it's shorthand for a lot of communications that are happening. And this is a generation which is going to grow up into being decision makers for how things happen at companies at scale, right? Yeah. So they'll bring in those behaviors. So to your point, from an automation perspective, from an AI perspective, this is just part of the learning. And whether you call it that unsupervised learning technique that needs to be introduced, so you constantly add more data and it learns, adds more intelligence along the way, and then it applies it in the right instances. So it feels like it's seamless. So if somebody is responding with an emoji, you can respond back with potentially an emoji or a shorthand as well. So it creates an identity for the business. It almost should feel like whenever you're talking to anybody in any company that you're dealing with, it's like talking to your friend. That's where it needs to get to. And we're not there yet. And if you think about it, I mean, why do you talk to any company at all?
It's usually a problem. I mean, it's usually a problem, unfortunately.
It's usually a problem, or I want to buy something. That's it.
Yeah.
That's how you would go talk to them. And you would talk to them whether you go to their physical location, you would talk to them in their digital storefront, which could be a website or it could be an app. And in the future, by the way, one of our hypotheses is that these conversations will become the new digital storefront for most companies. Not just an app, not just a website, but actual conversations which happen over messaging, over voice, over other things. So to get to that point where conversations become the way you buy something or you get support from something, you need to have an understanding of the language, and then that all needs to be automated through some of the intelligence behind the scenes.
You know, there's so many tools now readily available. We talked about the speed at which people are communicating and how they're changing their communications. What does that mean, I guess, for you and your teams? How fast are you guys able to update models, change models, adapt to customer requirements? Because the customer's probably constantly, like, I'm imagining if I'm a big multinational corporation, I can't even begin to fathom what kind of problems I have, but I know that I'm going to be tracking my calls, and then I might notice a problem in this arena and might be like, Savinay, can you solve this? Like, this is my problem now, right? Because I'm assuming that's how kind of like the problems emerge. And you're like, wow, this use case is starting to emerge and we're seeing trend patterns. And it's based on industry. It's probably based on macroeconomic conditions. Who knows what it's based on, but they're going to want solutions. What is this evolution of AI, low code, some of this tooling that we talked about? How is that implemented? How has that changed your ability to implement these changes? What's it look like now compared to what it used to look like?
I think the feedback loop has gotten a lot faster. So that's helped. It used to take a long time for us to go implement certain pieces of software and then let the users start to scale it, use it, and then eventually get some sort of feedback on whether it's being adopted appropriately, what kind of reports are being generated on it, all of that. But now, because of the inherent capabilities of the software, whether it's our admin console, which is capturing all of these data points, like billions of data points on a regular basis, and is able to then create reports and insights, which is helpful for our PMs to go look at and identify, hey, you know what? In this area, within this region, this is the kind of messaging that is being used more often. And therefore, let's figure out if we can provide more capacity or we can provide new ways to deliver that message, whether it's through WhatsApp or through something else. So the feedback loop has gotten a lot faster. Same thing with AI. We acquired an AI company a few years ago, and they're now completely embedded in every single product that we do and enable. So capturing that learning and putting it back into the data model and then evolving the insights that come out of the data model helps the PMs to decide what are the new capabilities or features to add. So that's the biggest change. Is I would say the feedback loop has become a lot faster, and that's a win-win for everybody around the board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming if you collect feedback, more accurate feedback faster, your product evolution is getting faster. Do your engineers, do your teams, customers, are they noticing that the time to resolution is starting to shrink, or is it time to execution, time to implementation? Have they observed these things? Or it's like, wow, we're able to solve these problems much faster now.
They are observing some of the features that are getting enabled. The velocity of that is definitely increasing. Let me give you an example. So in our contact center solution, we used to hear about the fact that, hey, we also need to have video. We also want to have the capability for agents to do a video call in addition to a voice call or a messaging. Earlier, we were like, well, why do you want video? I mean, why would somebody want to be, let's say, sitting in their PJs somewhere and have video on while they're speaking to a customer service agent? Kind of doesn't make sense. But if you take an example of, hey, something's wrong with my phone, and instead of trying to explain what's wrong with my phone, you just point out, here's what's wrong. And then it becomes a much easier conversation. So video started to become one of the asks. Because we are a platform where we have our own APIs underneath, we were able to take our video API and then embed that as part of our contact center solution, create what's called visual engagement as a feature inside the contact center, and enable that for our users. And that's how we started to collect the feedback. So it was an ask from what we saw. It was a real problem. Solved it using the capabilities we had within ourselves. I call it the composable enterprise because we have so many different Lego pieces. We can kind of build what we want with those Lego pieces pretty quickly. Ultimately, that's a benefit for the user.
Hey, thanks for watching. This segment is brought to us by Salesforce Platform. Visit salesforce.com/newsletter to discover timely insights and useful tips tailored to your role. Subscribe to this channel and get more great IT and tech interviews with top industry leaders.